Welcome to the next episode of the Teacher Zone with Chris and Tyler. I'm here with Chris Bates. How are you, sir?
I'm epic. How are you, Ty?
I'm feeling a little raw today. It's been a raw week. I'm going to tell you that right now. Chris and I have been through a lot. We haven't talked to you guys in a little while, but we have a new coach, right, Chris? So we've got this amazing new coach, life, business. They help software owners around the world just scale their businesses, leadership, scorecards, all sorts of things. And something's come to our attention, right, Chris?
Yeah, the reason that, listen, all of us as business owners every week, has its challenges and stuff like that. But what feels extra raw for Tyler and I this week is that our coach is named Dan Martell. And Dan, we took a class recently, and he sort of woke us up to the fact that a lot of the challenges that we all face we'll just own our own, are Tyler and I's fault with our own businesses.
Well,
We're basically not.
Chris, and we've told people this already before. We know how to own it. We know that if something breaks down in the business, we are extreme ownership gospel spreaders.
We drank that Kool-Aid a long time ago.
But there's some nuances we've recently discovered that we've just been doing it wrong. And you know how you know when it's wrong finally, Chris? It feels gross inside. It's
right.
It can hurt inside. It can be like, why? It can manifest in stress, not sleeping. But with me, I kind of sleep like a rock anyways. But it's while I'm awake, the uneasiness has been growing in certain parts of what we've been doing with our businesses. We're going to be talking about that today.
So it's funny because our topic today, we'll just go ahead and say the topic. The topic is you build your people and your people build your business.
Right.
Okay. And the reason that's the topic is today we're going to talk about leadership. We're talking about you. So if you're an owner or director or in any leadership position with your lesson or class business, then this is for you. Because at the end of the day, we as leaders tend to think that the business, basically, Tyler, you and I tease, like, sometimes, do you feel, if you're listening to this, do you feel sometimes like you're, the garbage filter? Like every challenge that arises, right? Like we all think of leadership as providing guidance amongst like the biggest problems.
Right. Well, I will say this. I do feel as if people that I'm proud of, hires that we've hired, people we've known for years, and it's my own fault, our own fault, because if you're a new listener, welcome. Chris and I own our businesses together. We're partners with both businesses. I feel that some of these hires, colleagues, they don't, as amazing as they are, they don't think for themselves. In ways that, and it's not their fault. We set it up to where I sit over an operations team with you that are doing daily tasks. And some of them are just, you don't have to ask them what to do, but many of them, I have to poke the next button and literally tell them what's next.
Yeah, do you guys feel like that? So that starts off this conversation perfectly, because it really comes down to two types of leadership. What Tyler and I just learned is that people have termed it, and if you've heard this before, bravo. But to Tyler and I, this concept, it's a new one, really. I mean, what it really comes down to is there's two types of leadership. There is transactional, which is what Tyler was just speaking of. And there's transformational. And so today we're going to talk about how if you build, and I'm going to read it because I wrote it down. If you build your people, they build your business. But that can only come from transformational leadership, not transactional.
Let's break down transactional really quick. Can I?
Let's start there. That is exactly what
already doing
to go through. Right.
Yeah. Chris, please send out please send out the marketing email, and I need the subject line to say this, and then work with this. Here's a one-liner for the body. You do the rest. Cool. Then step 2, I go back and check and see if it happened. Cool. And then I tell Chris, hey, all right, it's Thursday now. Can you please do this next email because we have another something to do that we're reacting to or something. Definitely not a system. And you might make an amazing email, but I'm literally telling you to do it every single time instead of growing my business.
Right. Yeah. Basically, it's do. There's 3 parts to transactional, which is what almost all of you listening are. It's what we are. It's what we as humans tend to default to. And I'll tell you the reason why, but let me tell you the 3. The 3, do. So you tell someone to do something. Like Tyler just said, do this email, right? Then you check, make sure it's done, right? This is like management 101. And then you go to the next task. And so this is the way we're all taught that you're supposed to be a leader, right?
How many employees under a certain person doing this method of transactional leadership, not transformational, how many till it starts to break down, Chris? How many is it where it's not
So typically the most you can handle is 7 or 8, but 12 is the max. So if you have more than 7 or 8 employees, and some of you I know have 30, 40, 50, 60 or more, if you have a bunch of locations, and you're still behaving this way, and we actually have a customer, by the way, that's massive that behaves this way, and to us it's apparent, but to them they just, no matter, even though we're friends, we tell them all the time, they just don't get it because they're so in the habit of behaving this way that they're bottlenecking their own business. So just understand this. If you've got to now, if everybody in the company's got to wait for each leadership team to check before they can do again, you just created a bottleneck in your business.
Right. And by the way, that is the antithesis of Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership book. In the details, in the fine print, as you read through it, we need to reread it. His fire teams practice transformational leadership because they have to go out and do their own thing without him. Period.
Well, that's an important distinction between special forces and the regular military.
Right.
Because the regular military is why this problem exists in the first place. The regular military is what our schools are based off of. The regular military is how our society was built. It's how the Industrial Revolution was mirrored after. It is exactly the whole hierarchical structure of like a general on top, right? And all these people reporting up all the way down to the bottom.
That's right? Where do you think the term red tape comes from?
Where actually?
It has to be that. You have to get through red tape. You cannot pass go unless you check in. You can't go pass go.
Right.
There's.
I see. I never thought about the red tape that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop.
It's so funny.
Stop.
I never thought. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's and imagine red tape everywhere, like crime scenes, like murders happened all over the place. That's what it basically is. Sorry, I got it.
No, it makes sense though, right? Because that's the bottleneck. There's a constant bottleneck now in the military and formal structures where you're actually talking about implementing whatever strategic vision the military is trying to implement. Maybe it works. Who knows? We're not going to go there. But what we do know is that in a modern world, especially a modern world where people are educated like they've never been, right, and people have access to everything. Right. I mean, thanks to YouTube, 5-year-olds have access to everything, and all the other resources out there. There's really no more excuse to act like you're the sage on the stage and everyone else has to listen to you. That's not applicable anymore, and you're bottlenecking your entire business. So that's transactional. Do, check, next action, do, check, next, do, check, next. Now, what is transformational? That's 3 things too.
Well, let's stop, Chris. What's happening? Let's give him one example. And I know we gave the example. What is the byproduct of me staying on top of my 7 people constantly? As a founder owner, okay, you already heard the annoying part. Like, yes, do check next, do check next. What is the repercussion? What is the consequence? Let's discuss that for a second. It's not fun and dandy.
So if I'm the person that you're telling that to, right? I'm for you and I, it actually, I don't know if he's listening, but Spencer Hayden, what's up, man? So Spencer does a lot of our marketing. So Spencer, if you're listening to this podcast, just so you know, please listen to the end, because we're also telling you that stop waiting for us, because the reality is that this type of leadership has got to go.
Right.
And yeah, go ahead.
The other thing is, Chris, if we're bottlenecking in that way and trying to tell Spencer and multiple operations staff what to do at every moment, plus you got to add in unplanned work anyways, because there'll be unplanned work that a founder might have to handle, depending on where your business is at, we're not growing the business.
Right.
How many hours a day?
Right.
If I am being reactive and transactional, how am I?
You're waiting for your next order.
Yes.
You're waiting for your next order. So if Spencer, as our example, we love you, Spencer. If Spencer, for instance, and Spencer is very proactive, and we're getting better and better at basically giving him that power, because it's something that as leaders or directors, it's very important that we make that part of the culture throughout the entire organization, where everybody feels empowered to be a leader, because this is all of our organization. Any business, it needs to be owned by all, not by just one demanding things, right? That's not a place people want to work. So if Spencer, as an example, is waiting on the next...
People don't quit because of companies.
Right. Why do they quit, Tyler?
They quit because of bosses. Straight up. It makes sense. So what Chris is just describing, it's so funny that it's coming at the last 90 days we've been talking with Spencer, and your name keeps coming up, buddy. And he's going to watch this because he pulls pieces from this and posts it. So hi. But we have been trying to, hey, don't wait around for us. Don't wait around for us. And then all of a sudden we were introduced to a transactional leadership versus transformational actual framework and study. And it just blew up. We were already feeling the pain and trying to execute things, but it was kind of on a transactional basis.
100%. We were still transactional. 100%.
Even though we were trying to change it.
No, we see ourselves as these great coaches and mentors, but at the end of the day, Tyler and I are two extroverted bulls, and we want to just get stuff done quickly. Here's the problem for a lot of you if you're like us. Okay, and a lot of you that are business owners are like us, because it's usually a similar personality type that is wacky enough to get into owning a business. But the thing is that we are so high energy that we are afraid that if we don't just get it done quickly now, because that it's going to take too long, but actually we're delaying it further, because if Spencer's waiting for an answer, then Spencer doesn't just take... Yeah.
Fact of the matter is, we're a year behind on even content creation and implementing some other super top secret stuff we're going to be implementing because of the slow bottleneck flow. Bottom line. So now you guys get it.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's an important distinction, because I know for myself, Tyler, and you and I are very similar. He and I test the same personality type. It's hilarious. But the reality is that we both, I know I can speak for myself. I feel like I'm pushing along faster because I'm involved, and it's just wrong. I'm delaying it, like you said, by a year, possibly.
I actually don't feel that way. I feel like I'm in a bad dream, stuck in the mud, and I don't have vocal cords. And I'm going, but it's my own fault. That's the worst dream. It's not even the mud. It's me. So, and we joke,
you're holding your own hand under the
yeah, life is short. We've got to learn to laugh at this stuff. Wow. But the most important part is we're learning. So Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. We just gave the consequences of transactional. We also gave the byproducts of how people respond to it and get used to it as employees. And then we talked about the time suck. Now, on the flip side, the contrast, what are the three things that are the gospel today? What are those three items that are going to change everyone's lives, including ours?
So for those of you, the word transformation itself, we all just love because it's this idea that you're becoming a better you, or you're becoming a better business, or the ideas are growing. Transformation, you just think about the butterfly emerging. And so this idea of transformational leadership is the idea that you are, number one, helping your staff, every person on staff, and it doesn't have to be you helping, but everybody on staff is helping each other in each role define an outcome.
People. That's people. Yep.
But they're defining an outcome. The transformational has three things. What you're saying is something we'll explore.
So let's talk right before you get into that. Freeze. Go to the three things that is our job. So we saw the consequences.
So we're going to tease you more on the transformational. But what Tyler's talking about is that for any person that's, so like for you owners out there and you top of the food chain people that have all the burden and stress on your shoulders, okay, stop it. That is not your job. Your job is not the garbage filter. Your job is three things, and that's it. And you could take this all the way up into multi-billion-dollar companies like Elon Musk and all those names, like Steve Jobs, who we all consider, to obviously be a transformational leader, and others. What is it that they all do different? And they focus on three things: vision, money, people.
Yep.
That's it. There is no job that a leader actually has except to protect those three elements.
Yep.
Right. So you're protecting the vision. That's your most important job.
Right.
And that's where transformational leadership, I think that's why you wanted to say this first.
Yes.
Because it leads into that. Yeah. Vision is your most important job. And vision is really, if that's like the only thing we all did all day was tout our vision, we'd probably be a lot more successful than we are now. Because you can just look at someone like Richard Branson, or someone like Elon Musk, or someone like Steve Jobs, or someone and think about it, they're like broken records. They retout their vision over and over and over. But what they're really trying to do, it's very calculated. They're trying to create alignment with their people, because that's the other part of their job, right? And then, of course, the money part is also equated to resources. It's not just money, but it's like you're in charge of basically what's going to be deployed, or fiscal responsibilities, making sure money's not just going to the wrong places. It's the
Miracle-Gro, man. It's the fertilizer. Like it's how everything keeps living. So
it's this cycle of the vision, money, people, vision, money, people. So vision is the most important part of this whole aspect, because that's your true job to your staff. Now, let's go into the transformational leadership, three things, and then we can explore that. So Tyler, do you know those things, or do you want me to say them?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So Chris was just about to say, and I'm glad the vision part was huge, because if we aren't sharing our vision with our people, then we're going to be transactional for life. It's just over. Put a pin in it, and it turns into those old office movies where it's all fluorescent lighting, short sleeve, white shirts, pocket protectors, and cubicles is what I see transactional leadership in my head. You know what I mean? Remember Joe versus Volcano, that really bad movie from a long time ago in the beginning? That's now what I see it as. It's not good for me, you, or them. So transformational, number one, is outcome, if you're writing this down. Number two is a way to measuring the outcome. And number three, coaching. So let's start with outcome, Chris.
So outcome. So, okay. So let's just take a situation, Tyler, and let's take your first example of the email, since we already used it, right? So Spencer, you're going to send a marketing email, in a transactional way. We're going to say, we need you to send this marketing email. Then we're going to say, when you write the draft, let me check it out really quick. And then we're going to say, great, send it. And it's sent. And then Spencer's going to wait around for the next order. Okay. Now let's look at a transformational way of doing it. Instead, we're going to say, hey, Spencer, here's the deal. We're trying to impact as many students as we can in our area. It's your job as part of our marketing team to help us with that outreach. How can you help us impact more people through email, as an example? Would you do me a favor and would you come up with a way, or rather a plan, and something that we can measure each week that will tell us if we're actually increasing our impact? And then the last part of that is Spencer goes, well, I don't know what you mean. So let's role play it, Tyler. So,
right.
So, hey, Spencer, we want to impact more people in our community because it's our goal to have as many students as possible impacted. So you and I talked about emails last week. I'd love for you to talk to me about how many emails you think we need to send a week and what types of emails to create that outcome. Would you mind putting together that plan for me?
What do you mean exactly?
Okay, guys, that's where the last part to this comes in, coaching. See? So a transactional leader, which Tyler and I have been all these years, would be like, here's what I mean, dude. I want 4 emails a week sent out. I want to send out to this. I want this. I want a community one. I want someone sent to the schools. I want one sent to this. I want that. Right? That's transactional. You're not letting your staff think for themselves. You're not letting them own the role for the outcome. Instead, oh, you don't know what I mean. Okay, so let's start back with our outcome. So what do you think our goal is with these emails, Ty?
We need to have X amount of incoming contacts and tours scheduled. We should have a report screenshot of how many people opened them. Maybe some sort of scorecard that we could see back.
No, you're right. That's
week.
The measurement part. But Ty, let me ask you a question. What is the outcome? What are we going for here? Like, what's the result we're looking at for in these emails?
With our emails? And I'm still playing Spencer, right? Okay. We want more people to know about the school.
Bingo. Brilliant. Love it. So with your staff, you agree with them because now they've aligned with the outcome. Brilliant. You're exactly right. So how can we measure? First of all, come up with a plan and then let me know how we can measure it. Now, here's the important part that stressed a lot of us out when we all learned about this framework is we're like, yeah, but while we're sitting there, sometimes they brain freeze. They're not used to thinking about it. Chunk it down, guys. Keep it simple. So then I might say, if Tyler's like, I don't even know where to start, I would say, brilliant. So how about this? How many days do you need to do some research? 3, 4?
I could a couple.
Okay. So let's do this. It happens to be a Thursday today. Let's go ahead and why don't we talk Monday? And that'll give you a couple days to sort of think about it. And then on Monday, we can start to create an action plan. Does that make sense?
How many things do you want me to come up with?
That's a whole nother framework we'll get into, but actually,
what's funny is depending on the age of the person working with you, their season, how seasoned they are in the industry, you might be all they know so far, especially if you're transitioning out of transactional into transformational, is what you have had them do and made them do. That's their baseline. So they might not have had to think about that before because guess what? As an entrepreneur, you and me and Chris, we're different than anyone else on our whole team and our whole organization. And that's okay.
Yeah,
so
if
when
you're
you
listening
ask a question,
this,
they might not know what to say.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, then you've probably been answering people's problems for a long time, okay? And we get that. Your staff doesn't know how yet. That's the hard part of this framework, and it's why Tyler and I feel so beat up this week, because now that we know, we can't hide again against our old habits.
The lights have been turned on, and the bottom line is this too, is how we show up as founders is how the team shows up. Period. So if we show up and we're all transactional, the whole culture is. And that's where you get weird shit like, excuse my French, that's not my job. or something. You might have heard things along the road of different employees.
How many of you are afraid to ask, somebody to do something or whatever, because you're afraid you're going to get that response from your teachers or from some certain people? Okay. So what we're positing here is from everyone in your staff, and for most of us, that means teachers, right? And most of our staff members are teachers for a lot of you. Basically, the way to think about this differently with our teachers is to think about the fact that as the leader, it's our job to come up with the vision. It's our job then to let everybody know what the heck it is, because they got to know where they're headed, man. Maybe you got them heading in the wrong direction because they think the vision's something different than what you think, right? So once you're able to convey that clearly to everyone, now you can incrementally and slowly, it doesn't have to be instant,
right,
train everybody lovingly to basically be transformational in themselves. They have to want to be better. They have to want to be a better instructor. They have to want to make a greater impact. They have to want to push your vision forward. If they do not, what happens, Tyler?
Then it's just right back to transactional, and it's going to be mundane, and you're not going to get growth out of them. They will not grow as a person.
And at some point with this framework, what's going to happen is, let's just pretend like you have 15 on staff. And Tyler, 12 of them transform beautifully. And so every month, all of them are kind of getting a little bit better. They're getting a little more deep in the culture and vision. They're assuming more responsibility and alignment with that. They're more team players for everybody, right? What happens with the 3 eventually that you notice are stagnating or even going backwards?
Well, there's a science to it at that point. Either they don't fit, and then they can't follow through, because here's the thing. If you go into transformational leadership and coaching, there's 3 ways you can look at it. You sit them down, let's say you're just starting, and you go over the principle. Like, look, check this out. I would like you to be able to truly be creative with this one thing a week, every week, to where I never have to do anything, and I see this content coming out of you on your own. And then another way is do a story, a case study, and be like, look, so when I started doing this, because that used to be my job, I would sit down and I wouldn't know what to write. It was my first year or 2 years making the company, and I had 2 teachers and I did everything. And I would sit down and I'd write out an email and I'd get stuck. And then all of a sudden I'd go to someone else's website and get an idea or something. You tell a story of something that worked, an anecdote that real time worked for this particular principle that you just brought up. Then after that, you give them that and then ask them, what did you take away from what I just went over in regards to what I'd like you to do? And what are you going to commit to moving forward? Then the key is don't overcomplicate it. Don't go over 16 things at once. Let them take a few swings at that next week. Just start basic.
So what Tyler's talking about right now is you actually got into the coaching part of it, which is the important part of aspect of this is growing people's ability to be able to actually make their own decisions and not wait for you. Okay.
Right.
What I was saying with that other thing, Tyler, what I was trying to bait you with is that what a lot of people don't want to think about. You're going to have to fire some people.
And that's what I meant by science. If they don't fit, they don't fit.
That's the part of this, you guys, that you can't even say today to us who it is you would fire until you practice transformational leadership long enough. And I don't know if it's a year, 2 or 3, 4, 5. I don't know, man. Some of you have really healthy operations and everybody's working so great that maybe you are so close to transformational, it's easier for you. And for those of us that aren't, maybe it takes us 3 or 4 years. Point is, at some point, everyone gets so aligned and everyone is so in the boat that those that aren't in the boat become really clear.
It's true.
They self-vet. But what Tyler just said about coaching is the process along the way that eventually we'll ferret that out, right? We're not just saying jump to being either they're being a big contributor or I'm letting them go. That's still transactional. You're still saying if then, right?
You want to empower them. So what? So the idea of this whole method is that they see that you care about the vision and that intrinsically we really want them to also. And by the way, here's how, but then you're actually having them tell you how.
For those of you that have seen our transformation webinar, for transforming your business, we talk about something at the beginning we talk about Change or Die book. And Tyler, I was blown away as you and I were learning all this stuff, because I'm almost through that book, and that's the book. It's literally, now granted, our coach recommended it, so it makes sense that it aligns, but the book, okay, so I'm going to give the example. There's many, but I'll give one of the main ones that just blows me away. So we all know that if you're American, we all know that the justice system in America, it's tough. And in fact, I studied this in college a little bit. It goes back really since human recorded history. We've struggled with how to rehabilitate people, right? Because people don't change. And so when people act a certain way, it's really hard to rehabilitate them. So we don't know what to do, so we cage them up like an animal. Well, they tried something different in San Francisco. And this, she's in her 70s now, and I'm forgetting her name, but she grew up as an immigrant in a Jewish neighborhood in New York. And she has 2 PhDs, one from Berkeley and one from University Starcher in Paris University. So she's a smart lady. And it came to her, the idea to her that she could run a jail better than the jails are being run. So she started one in San Francisco. And this jail, and I'll put it in the liner notes because I have to look it up, but the results are transformational in that the people are actually rehabilitating. And when these are the same people that are not rehabilitating, they're coming out of normal prison, and 70% of them are going back. In hers, 70% are actually having amazing lives. So the exact opposite of the results of the infrastructure. And if you look at it, what's really interesting is that the typical jail system is very transactional. Eat your dinner, do this, work out, and if you're doing a work program, you do your work, then you go back to your cell. Then it's very tell you what to do. Why is her program so different? Her program is so different because it creates transformational pods. Those pods are 8 to 10 people. And by the way, that's a magic number. They've shown that all those corporate leaders that we look at, like Elon Musk or Richard Branson or those guys, those guys only have 7 people that report to them. That's it. And then those 7 create other pods on down. And the point being is that they've shown that sort of Fibonacci is actually the Fibonacci sequence in those numbers tend to work pretty good as well for grouping. But the bottom line is that somewhere in that 7 to 10 range, 7 to 12 range is kind of the perfect number for a group, right? And so, or 13, if you want to say Fibonacci. And so when you have the group, they become accountable to themselves. So you no longer have an inmate, you have a pod. And so I won't beleaguer this issue. I want you guys to maybe look up this book if you care. It's called Change or Die. And it is, I'll look up the author, but it is incredible because every anecdote in this book speaks over and over again about insane results from people that normally don't have results just because they belong to something with a bigger vision, and that the requirement is of their participation, not of them to sit around and wait for an order. And that's the important part of transformation, is that you're giving people permission to have stake in the vision of your company.
Right. And at the same time, you're finding out who actually fits and wants to care and believes what you believe. So that will root out those folks that don't, the stuff that we have fear about is like, well, what if so-and-so doesn't fit the mold, Chris? What if employee B is just, and that's the fear, and that's why we don't do anything, but I'm sick of telling people constantly what to do. And I get it. People are probably like, you know what, that's not my job. I don't get paid enough, whatever. And shame on us for not layering the playbook and stacking the deck and having this transformational leadership in the first place. So it's going to be some change coming up very soon at our
because a lot
Academy.
of us have to learn that. So if you have a lot of staffers that are, which is pretty much all of us, all of us have grown around the framework of transactional leadership so much that pretty much it's easier to just wait around for orders, right? And so what you're going to find is that, so even in the jail in San Francisco, okay, the first thing she has to do is get them sober, because almost everybody are drug addicts, and they've been drug addicts often since they were like 5, but they get sober. 70 to 80% of them not only get sober, but they do what I said, transform into society. But what happens to that other 10 to 20%? A lot of them end up wanting to go back to jail because they don't like that they have to actually be accountable. They don't want. So what the pod says to these folks, first thing is, in our pod, Tyler, we don't use. And because we're a team and we're just one big team, it's not a big deal. We're not going to talk about, we don't need or whatever. We'll get you whatever you need. So for some people, they have to be hospitalized for a week or whatever. We're going to get you what you need, but you can't use anymore. That's just number one in our pod, period. But what's so special is because they have the support of 10 people, or whatever the number is, 7 to 12, because they have the support of those people, everybody gets sober quickly. There's not a struggle because you have all that support, just like the program.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. And so it works the same in our companies. So once we get everybody aligned, at first you're going to get the pushback. You're going to get the people that, just like she does, that want to go back to jail because they're like, screw this. I actually want to be told what to do. That's not my job. But once that kind of works itself out,
imagine what could happen.
Sky's the limit.
More people will be connected. There'll be more fun. There will be less unknowns, because on a weekly basis, whoever reports to whoever is reporting basic things such as, are there certain students not in this part of our program on your roster? Yes or no? Cool. Why? And do you think they might be soon? And do you have an idea how to get them there? Awesome. Right. When are you going to implement that? Awesome. See you later. Imagine if all the whoever the instructors are, if it's your school, had that basic thing. I'll tell you right now, we have things in place at our company. We're not dolts. We didn't get Los Rios Rock School to be one of the top performance academies on earth without some neat things in place. But I'm telling you, it's missing this framework.
We don't own it across the board. So what we do is we have lots of this sort of thing going on, right? But it's not. It's going on amongst transactional actions, right? So in other words, we'll have a functional pod that's working real well together and all that, but they're still waiting around and bottlenecking and waiting for one of our directors or somebody to tell them what to do. And the bottom line is that once you get high functioning teams and you get a high functioning company where everyone's transformational, it becomes infectious. And now people can't wait to level up each other.
Right.
And they're owning their role bigger and better than they ever have.
Right. Transformational leadership, Chris, can also be done on a very simple and basic level. It doesn't have to be overly complex. If anybody's listening to all this and they feel confused at all, just know it's a 3-part framework: outcomes, measurements, and coaching. And you let them take some swings for a week, and then you revisit. The problem is, we talk to business owners all over the place. Guess how often they're revisiting one-on-one? Hardly.
Never. Well, they'll say it, and we've all done this, right? You come up with this bright idea, and then you don't follow up. And when you start getting people owning their own outcomes, then it's easy. The reason we don't follow up, I think, half the time is because we're stressed and we're like, oh, that's more work for me. And you guys, this is about getting work off your plate so you can focus on vision, money, and people. And so what we want to do is, let's go ahead and role play this really quick, okay? Let's take it, since most of the people listening are going to have instructors as their main employees. What would be a common challenge, or rather, what would be like something that you might want from your teacher that you're going to get pushed back, or like you might ask and then they're going to wait for the next ask and then they're going to wait for the next ask? What Tyler might be something
I
that
don't
we
know.
can explore?
Maybe just basic roster reviews. How's everybody doing? Maybe there's a red, a yellow, and a green tag that green is like, seriously, these 75% of my roster is always great. But like, is there a way we could know if someone's not and not have to ask 2 months from now when we do our roster reviews? We even have quarterly roster reviews. It's part of our accreditation and things like that we stay in tune and know what these kiddos are missing or not missing and whatever. But that's every 90 days. What if there was a really easy way, part of the job description, that the teachers could send it up to the scorecard and you don't have to meet with all 12?
That's a really interesting thing to explore. So let's look at that. So roster reviews, what you're saying is that typically at our organization, as an example, we do it quarterly, and it's very transactional, and it's very, hey guys, we need all roster reviews done by X date.
Guess what? I didn't even have anybody tag any. We have them all to go read. Nobody tag. If there was a red flag in there, we didn't even have them tag them and say, send those to us. If there's any reds, send them right now. They were done 3 weeks ago.
So let me ask you a question. Why did none of our instructors by default say, oh my gosh, guys, in that roster review, it really scared me. 3 of my students help?
Right. Well, because we didn't tell them to and make it clear on why and the vision and whatever. So that's our fault. But number two,
no. Stop. I'm sorry. That's brilliant. Guys, do you hear what he just said? We didn't tell them to, so we're bottlenecking our own instructors, right?
Getting in our own way.
Because they are taking the initiative because we didn't train them to be their own transformational leaders with their own rosters.
Chris and I have a desire, and they have a lot of great desires too, to change kids' lives. Our staff loves to make an impact. We already know that about them. They wouldn't have made it on the team otherwise. But Chris and I have desires inside that they don't know about yet, or something. Like they might come up in we have staff meetings every month and it's kind of a group get together, see each other's faces, the whole thing, and talk about what's coming up and whatever. But there isn't, maybe 1 or 2 staff have ever heard that we would like to know how many weeks has gone by without this particular student being in this nether part of our program that we know leads to life-changing results for children. Like, why has 7 weeks gone by and this kid is nowhere near those 2 other parts of our program that changes kids' lives?
So again, the reason that this isn't happening at our own organization with regard to getting kids into our performance program or roster reviews is because we have created a system that we've been doing for years that our staff is diligently following. They're doing awesome. This is not berating the staff, by the way. Tyler and I we're basically,
it's not their fault.
What do you call it? We're basically saying we're the problem. Okay. Because we created
was that you whipping yourself? Like
yeah. We're basically whipping ourselves, right? We're saying we're the problem.
For those of you watching, you saw that. If you weren't watching.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways. But go on. So we're punishing ourselves.
We're punishing ourselves in this talk right now, and that's why you and I are feeling beat up this week, because we realize that we are the problem. I'm afraid in this talk we might have pretended like our staff is a problem. That is not what we mean. What we mean is that by us not training and coaching up our staff to our vision and getting them to be self-empowered, and to get them to always want to better themselves, and instead forcing them to wait around for our next order, we've trained them to be mediocre. We've trained them to basically just sort of tread water in place based on the standards that we set, not try and push the bar higher on their own. We've not given them permission.
And we set that. So do they do amazing things? Is our school, were we Grammy contenders last year? Yes. all that stuff still happens, but it's reaction-based project management. It's all neat stuff, and everybody comes up with great ideas because the staff is unreal. And then inside one-on-one, miracles are happening, but we have no scorecards. All we have is we play 100 songs every 4 months. Parents aren't calling us pissed, and maybe only a couple like problems. That's our scorecard, Chris.
So
our only scorecard is that.
We've lessened our problems, like many of you have, by creating better systems, sanding the edges, and all the things that Tyler and I always talk about with systems. So we definitely have done that okay. But what we're not doing well that we really realized this week is we are not basically giving permission to all of our staff to be their own leadership team to align with the company's vision. We're, number one, not clear enough about the vision day to day. It needs to be reiterated again and again and again and again and again. When you get sick of it, trust me, everyone else isn't, because it just lets them know what direction we're all headed in. Once they know that, and they know they have the freedom to dance around in that direction, as long as it creates forward momentum, then you start to see explosive things happen. So like Tyler said, we have explosive moments all the time because our staff is extraordinary, just like many of yours. But we're talking about, well, a lot of us can't even imagine, and that's a business.
We know our business can be next level. It
can be 4 times where it is now. Like what is your business right now? Could your lesson business or your class business be right now? Could it be 10x right now? Because ours could easily, right?
We are not next level. We're on year 11, and hovering at that million gross area, and it's been hovering there. And we have 8,000 square feet, and we could have 245 students, and our record was 198 1-hour students. Like, so that
for a lot of you, that would be like almost 400 students basically, because we're running 1 hour. We only do 60 minutes. We don't do anything else.
But my point is, Chris, is like, why has it topped out? Why is it there? Because it's us. We bottlenecked it. If I'm spending X amount of hours doing a certain item, being transactional, the growth stuff, like for instance, how hard would it be for people like Chris and myself to go and meet with all the parochial schools in our area in South Orange County? We could probably have them all at lunch in no time, but we're too busy reacting.
We heard from you guys. Okay, so just so you know, over the last 6 years or so globally, we've talked to over 10,000, let's just say, different conversations, different connections, different customers, different things, okay, throughout the world. So our staff and us have talked to so many folks, and what we hear over and over is, I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're staying up late, if you're getting up early and burning that 11, 12, whatever it is day all the time, and you're stressed out and you still feel like you're running in place, you're not alone. That is what we all do to ourselves because we think that's the way to lead. What we're saying is there's a much better way, and we don't even know, like we can't even tell you guys yet. Tyler, I mentioned it before.
This is the beginning, you guys. You're going to see some more episodes about this, and we'll check in, or maybe we'll do a little transformational win check-in, 10-minute little increment or 5-minute increment.
We need to do part 2, Tyler, on the 131. So we'll do that. That's on how you solve challenges.
We'll do part 2 on the 131, but we're also going to check back in and let you know how we've been able to win with actual case studies and instances. And successes. And we challenge you guys to go out there and try to do this. And if you have any questions or comments for the next episode, email us, Tyler@teacherzone.com or Chris@teacherzone.com. And we'd love to hear from you guys.
Actually, hello@teacherzone.com goes to all of us. So,
okay, hello@teacherzone.com.
Say hello. But Tyler, I wanted to say one thing to this, okay? We are drinking our own Kool-Aid on this, and we're in the middle of the pool because we've been analyzing all this. That's why he and I are kind of stunned this week, because as we analyze how much we're in the way, it's actually embarrassing to both of us. We're our own bottlenecks. So what we're asking of all of you,
it's exciting at the same time.
I got so excited. You're going to go through emotions on this, guys. I got so excited that I was bursting out of my skin. I dreamt about it. I was like, oh my gosh.
Right. Well, it's going to consist. There's going to be some work, just like any change.
Yeah. I even had a dream. I told Tyler
you're going to have to list skill sets. You might even go into, what is my dream program director? What would their skill set be in a perfect world? What does mine have now? How does it fit? And then how can we empower? You're going to have to go through each person and just take a look. You don't have to talk to them yet. Take a look. Well, have fun with it. Experiment.
Okay, so two things. One, I was that number one, you guys, the first action step that you all have to take is get your vision together. Period. Get your vision together, because if you don't have a good vision of where you're headed, you can't lead. So that's first. The number two, what Tyler said, is start going through each staff member and say, in alignment with this vision, how can I get all my staff to level up? Now, with your teachers, you might chunk them. You might say roles: teacher, director, administrators. You might take different roles, and that might be the easiest way to look at it. But the first step, vision, and identify how everyone could be more empowered to help take that vision to the next level.
Right. And then also, Chris, make an itemize what you're constantly having to tell certain people every week. That's probably your easiest cheat sheet. Where are you spending most of the transactional time of your owner founder life?
That's a good one. That's a great one.
And then you could kind of work backwards and go, okay, there's the first 3 employees that we could definitely have fun working on. And
right, where's the biggest bottlenecks right now that you're feeling the most stress each day, right? Because that stress is probably related to the fact that you're being a terrible leader. And what I was going to say earlier about the dreams that I had is that I had a dream when I was thinking about all of this. I had a dream that I revisited a lot of my key employees over the years. And it was funny because I woke up and I called Tyler and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so funny. I actually, it was almost like a movie where you go back in time. And I was having to revisit my style, and I was like, I wish I could do over. So don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, I wish I did that in a dream. Usually it's real time in my own head, and I go, and then and my wife's like, what? And I'm like, nothing.
Yeah, that book, by the way, Alan Deutschman, you guys, Change or Die. Alan Deutschman is the book I was talking about with the jail, but there's lots of other cool examples of transformational leadership. Bottom line, guys, is that it takes a village. We started this saying, if you build your people, they build your business. So I want you guys to I won't go into the whole.
How many people that you have are actually building your business right now? Do you even consider any of them building your business?
Take your marketing people, right? Because a lot of you have some people that help out with marketing. Are they waiting around for your orders? Right. Are they actively exploring? Take your staff. Are they trying to make the student experience better? I mean, truly, not just be great teachers. Listen, we understand that all of you are very discerning and have many of you have extraordinary staff. We're not saying that they're not good teachers. What we're saying is, are they actually?
Most of your teachers do their own thing, and it's the Wild West, because you do trust them.
Yep.
And they're unique, and you want them to have their superpowers in your building. But are you providing the students? Are they your employees or part of your team or not? Because you can't have your cake and eat it too in that regard. You can't have your vision be all encompassing and a beautiful thing everybody's in synergy with, and then let 4 or 5 of your teachers castle by themselves inside their offices and you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I hear so many of you that say, wow, that would be so nice, but my teachers just won't do that. I'm like, excuse me? For the simplest things like take attendance or like monitoring what they're assigning or guys, listen, I don't care if you've got contractors or employees.
Hey, ultimately, what would happen to you if you said that at Disneyland as an employee?
Right. Well, and
I'm
what
just saying, guys, and this is not stupid.
But you know what, Tyler? Here's what we're gonna hear from a lot of you that have contractors. But I'm not allowed to. You know what? Knock it off. You are creating the vision for your business. Now, if you have a lead,
and you're taking all the risk, you're bringing in many times adolescents into the building and working with hopefully live scan fingerprinted people that are all of a sudden don't even want to take attendance in some sort of metrics tracking system because that's not what they do. Guys, that's a weird place to be.
You're allowed to have contractors if you want to. And with that, you're allowed to have contractor agreements that articulate your vision. So it doesn't matter what employee type you have, contractor, and you still should have a vision.
Right. And they don't have to sign that, by the way. They cannot work there. That's correct. Okay.
But when they know where you're headed, then they have to align. It's that simple. If I'm going to hire, to give you an example, if you're going to do a remodel on your house, for instance, like Tyler and I have some contractor friends that have built out our school, right? Like we don't trust anyone more than them. They're amazing. We love them to death, but they're aligned with us, right? You don't want to have people, even though they're not our employees, they're still people that we want in our lives and that we're going to continue to empower as we have needs. Same thing with your business. Make sure that they're on the same bus as you. Because if they're going a different direction than you are, that's probably part of your stress.
Now, hey, everybody, if none of this applies to you and you feel happy and all your teachers give you a rosy feeling inside your tummy, then that teacher's fine no matter what's going on. If you feel like something's not right and you're stressed and you're burned out and it's coming from all directions to where you aren't easily identifying it even, you need to look around. Just look around, write down some goals, write down what's taking most of your time up every day with transactional things, and that is always having to be repeated.
Oh, yeah. So Tyler, good example. Right now, you guys, we're accredited, and also when there's parent issues, Tyler's our principal. So with our accreditation department and with parent issues, Tyler still handles those deals. So we're not saying that you don't have roles in the company. What we're saying is stop making everything in the company your role because you're the problem. What we're saying is define what your roles will be. And in fact, Tyler and I were even talking today about how we can eventually take those exact duties and get them to a place that we can actually train some of our other directors to handle them as well. And so the point is that if you've got certain jobs that they're your jobs right now, that's fine. But as a leader, understand you don't have to have a job. That's not your role as a leader. Right. Your role is vision, people, finances.
Chris always talks about working in the business versus working on the business. So you've heard this before. Working on the business is transformational. Working in it is transactional. And so at some point, we're trying to, like many of you used to teach and now you don't. And that's your biggest win. Like a certain time into the business, you're like, I taught, I don't need more. Woo, put your little graduation cap on. I remember that day for myself. And then all I realize now, 5 years after that, is that was like step 1.0.
Right.
That was just not even the beginning.
You fired yourself as a teacher and then hired yourself into 11 other roles.
Yeah. No, well, I had those jobs before. I interviewed those.
That's true.
You were doing 4 years prior to that.
Which a lot of you are. So here's, I want to end, Tyler, with this visual. Our coach talked about vector leadership, and he was saying that guys like Elon Musk, as an example, are vector leaders, right? And so what they try to do is that you can imagine a point. So if you imagine a point and you imagine two lines meeting at that point, like a corner, like a 90-degree angle, right? And so you're imagining this point. That point, the more you can get that point sharp and everyone aligned into the point, right? The more the company can actually push forward into all sorts of amazing action items, amazing growth, amazing community impact. The less aligned you are, the less. So if one teacher's going one way, one staffer's going another way, and then you're trying to constantly wrangle everybody back into a point, okay? That's probably why you're not growing. It's probably why you have a lot of stress. if you can just think about the fact that your job instead is to constantly coach your staff so they feel empowered to actually implement the vision that you've spelled out, then people can start to align to a point. They'll be focused. They'll be pointed, as the saying goes.
I like it.
Right? They'll have laser focus. There's another metaphor, right? Because they'll know where they're headed, and they'll know that they have permission to do the actions that keep us headed in that direction.
Right. And just remember, everybody, be patient as you think through this. Take a breath. Give them a chance to learn, because you're literally coaching them on how to learn now.
That's a big one. That'll be our next couple. We're going to keep going with this, guys. We wanted to get this out there. And all fairness to you guys, we're basically like, Gandhi. Mom comes to Gandhi. She says, tell my kid not to eat sugar. He says, come back in a week. She comes back in a week. Kid comes in front of him. Gandhi goes, don't eat sugar. The mom goes, that's it? We waited a week for you to just say that? And he goes, well, a week ago, I ate sugar.
I love that one. Gets
right.
Me.
Well, Tyler and I are simply telling you not to eat sugar, and we're still eating sugar. So just know that we are still transactional leaders. We are still fighting our own demons.
We want to grow, and we want you guys to grow. That's all. Can we make an impact? We love making impacts with students, staff, everyone. I think you've noticed that about us so far. And right now, we want to make an impact in our own lives and yours. So if you want to grow, take a look, and we'll see you next time on this topic. We'll check back in. But again, have some courage. Take a look. If this spoke to you, you know what to do next. If it didn't, we'll see you the next podcast either way. So again, everybody, Chris, thank you so much for the talk today.
Thanks,
and thank you for tuning into Teacher Zone. And visit teacherzone.com if you want to know more about us and find other podcast episodes as well. And we'll see you next time.